Welcome to the new show of the week. There was a lot of stuff that happened, some soccer, some MMA stuff, and a lot of NFL news with the franchise tag window closing and the start of the new league year quickly approaching. So, a lot of stuff to get into. Let's get started. Cue that intro music.
Tedeschi dentro sotto per Dybala, attenzione, va la gioia di Dybala! Stokely down the sideline. Can they catch him? Stokely, wow!
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Curry, way downtown. Bang! Bang!
So we start off in the world of soccer with a couple of interesting pieces of news. The first one comes out of Serie A with Juventus and American player Weston McKennie has signed a new deal with Juventus and it'll be valid for the next 4 years, all the way till 2030. So this is the second deal that they've signed with one of their players until 2030. They also signed one with their young Turkish star Kenan Yildiz, and McKennie has been really, really good for Juventus. He's been playing really, really well for them in Serie A, but also when they were in the Champions League. If I'm not mistaken, he is now top 3 all-time for Juventus Champions League goal scorers, which is saying something considering the players that have played there include Del Piero, Zidane, Henry, Ronaldo, just to name a few. So that is impressive, and this is a good deal. I like keeping him at Juventus. Apart from being a Juventus fan, I like keeping him there. It's something that they need. They need some stability with their team because it feels like every year they're shipping someone out to somewhere or doing some move that turns out is regrettable. So it's good to see them keeping some of the players rather than giving them away. And then next piece of news related to soccer is that Rodrigo has torn his ACL, and reports is that his timeline is 6 to 7 months. That's a relatively quick timeline, but with modern medicine, you never know. But this does mean he will miss the World Cup with Brazil. So very unfortunate news. I don't think it'll have too many implications for the Brazil squad. I don't think he was going to be a starter for them in any capacity with Ancelotti, but he's a nice piece to have for them coming off of the bench. But that is all of soccer news. Nothing crazy, just McKennie contract and the Rodrigo ACL. But now we get into the interesting stuff, and we'll start off with this. Armand Sarukian turned RAF 6 into a UFC event, apparently. Let's take a look.
Who listening for the takedown? Sarukian stuffs it, and this match is over. Armand Sarukian is going to bang! And it has all broken loose as they are going to get these things sorted out here, folks. Izzy Martinez having to get involved. Chad Bronstein having to get involved.
So, after his RAF 6 match against Giorgio Poulas, Armand Sarukian proceeded to shove him and throw a couple of punches, which resulted into an all-out brawl. It's kind of tricky because if you look at it throughout the match, there was tension the entire time. There are clips of Poulas shoving and pushing Armand, poking him in the eye, shoving him in the face, clips like that. So I've seen some people on timeline saying that he was justified in retaliating. I don't think you're justified in retaliating to this degree, but it's unfortunate. And then this has bigger implications for Arman. Ever since he had to pull out of his title fight at UFC, I think it was 300 against Islam for his back injury, he's fallen out of favor with Dana White and the rest of the UFC. So he hasn't really gotten a title shot, even though he was sitting at the number one contender the entire time. He recently he started doing these side quests. He's been doing RAF matches. He's been doing submission grappling matches. He did a karate combat submission match as well, I believe. So that, and he's also been making appearances. He's been on social media a lot, collaborating with streamers. He recently collaborated with Mighty Mouse. He's been posting social media like Crazy Meals, stuff like that. So he's been building a better image and brand of himself, which certainly helps considering his prior series of incidents. I don't remember what the first one was. Oh, I remember he allegedly punched a fan at UFC 300, I believe. And then he allegedly broke Dan Hooker's nose during the weigh-ins of their fight back in November. So he's had some issues, and this just continues that, and it kind of tarnishes the image that he's been building of himself, of a guy that's willing to go out and fight and compete whenever possible. Like I said, he's been waiting for that title shot. He's been the number one contender for a while, but now he'll have to wait for whenever Ilya and Gaethje fight each other, because Gaethje gets the automatic bid being the interim champion. So whenever that happens, it'll be interesting to see when that is. I think Arman should have gotten a title shot. I don't think that he should be waiting this much. Even the interim title fight, I think that Arman should have been in that fight. I don't know why you put Patty and Gaethje in there and then just leave out the number one contender. That doesn't make sense. Like, he's the number one contender. Make him prove it. He easily took care of Dan Hooker, who was number 6 at the time. Make him prove it against Patty or Gaethje. Make him earn that interim title and then have him fight Ilya. Like, that's a logical way, but no, you go around it. You have Gaethje against Ilya, and honestly, Gaethje's going to get flatlined, but not the point. This is just a weird situation. So I don't know what exactly will happen to Arman. I doubt he'll get a title shot in the foreseeable future at this point, the way things are turning out. But enough with the UFC. Let's get over to the NFL. Stuff is actually happening now. We're closing in on the start of the new league year, so lots of trades are starting to be cooked up. And the first major one was that the Lions ended up trading standout running back David Montgomery to the Texans in exchange for offensive line Juice Scruggs. Heck of a name, by the way. That's insane. A 4th rounder and a 7th rounder. This marks the end of the Sonic and Knuckles era in Detroit, which you hate to see. But when there was some reporting that Montgomery allegedly wanted out of Detroit, even though he shot those down, he did see his touches go down with Jahmyr Gibbs emerging this year as a true RB1. But to say he's been productive would be an understatement there. I believe over his 3 seasons after he went to the Lions from the Bears, he put up 2,500 yards and I want to say 30 30 plus touchdowns. So he's been very, very productive, but I don't know how feasible it was to keep him because they're also going to have to pay Jahmyr Gibbs as well. He's coming up on a contract, or he is available for an extension right now, so I think they have to prioritize that. So it makes sense that they move on from him. On top of that, they're trying to rebuild their offensive line right now and go back to that true run first, pound the rock, I'm going to beat you, be aggressive, in your face style Dan Campbell football. So that was a major move for them. And then Montgomery, he goes to a Texans RB room that is rough. They have Woody Marks, who was a rookie last year. I believe he rushed for 700-ish yards. And then you have the shell of Nick Chubb and the ghost of Joe Mixon, who did not play at all last season, and Nick Chubb is a free agent. So clearly Montgomery is going to be the RB1 unless they make some other groundbreaking move, which I doubt they will, but you never know. So that it's a new start for him with the Texans, but I don't know how well they're going to be able to perform this season because if I'm not mistaken, they were 22nd in rushing efficiency. So they have a lot to work on this year. And then continuing on with the theme of running backs, Seattle Seahawks are not going to tag Kenneth Walker for some reason. I don't understand this. Why aren't you doing this? You don't have Zach Charbonnet. He tore his ACL in the NFC Championship. 4 months is not enough time to come back from an ACL. You don't have a running back if you don't bring back Kenneth Walker. What are you doing here? And Kenneth Walker is going to get offers in this free agency market. He is the top back right now when you look at everything. So not giving Kenneth Walker or not putting him on the tag is not exactly the smartest thing in the world to do. He's, like I said, he was Super Bowl MVP. He played amazing in that game. And he's going to, like I mentioned, I'm kind of repeating myself here, but he's going to get offers. I was talking about it when I first mentioned the franchise tag, that the Chiefs are probably looking for running backs. So that is a very interesting, very possible potential suitor right there. So a lot of stuff could happen with him. And then continuing with the running backs again and the franchise tag, the Jets franchise tagged Breece Hall. So this is pretty much a placeholder for them while they work out a long-term deal. And ideally, they'll try to figure out what they're going to do here. He's been 14th in scrimmage yards since he entered the league. So, and apart from Garrett Wilson, he's their only other viable threat on offense. There's no other choice. You have to work out a deal with him. He might just be waiting for Gibbs and Bijan to get their massive deals, whatever those will turn out to be. So that could majorly influence that. And if they don't, he'll still be on the roster for the entire season, but then he'll be a free agent next year, which could have, again, more implications. But this takes off what I believe was the RB2 that takes him off the market instantly. So it's a good move for the Jets. They need to keep as much talent in the building as possible. So, yeah, honestly, I thought that Breece Hall was going to get moved at the trade deadline after they moved Quinnen Williams and Sauce Gardner. I thought that he was very probable that he was going to leave. He also voiced his disappointment that he wasn't traded. I thought, again, he was going to the Chiefs like Kenneth Walker. Don't ask me why I have this thing with Chiefs and getting running backs. They desperately need it. Isaiah Pacheco is angry at the ground, but that doesn't mean he's good. So I think that this is what the Jets needed. They needed to keep their talent on the roster, or their only talent at this point. Then we go to something that isn't exactly positive. It's not a player getting franchise tagged or staying on a roster. It's a player getting the boot. Kyler Murray has been informed that the Cardinals are planning to release him the first day of the new league year, barring a trade. So, yeah, Kyler is done in Arizona. Arizona, they owe him $36 million in guarantee for 2026, and another 19.5 would have been triggered for on March 15th for 2027, but they're going to get rid of him before that. So this marks the end of a 7-year tenure with Arizona. He was number one pick back in 2019. And honestly, to say there were highlights would be an understatement. There were some amazing plays by Kyler. He threw for more than 20,000 yards, rushed for more than 3,000 yards. So he's been absolutely spectacular. He's had moments. I wouldn't say he's been absolutely spectacular. He's had moments. And the reason I say that is that he's only played in all 16, 17 games, if you look at games that were added, 3 times. His rookie season, his sophomore season, and then in 2024. So he's missed a lot of time. And because of that, the Cardinals have only made the playoffs once, in which they got first rounded by the Rams in the wild card. So he's been good, but there's a lot of holes and a lot of complaints. There's also the whole iPad kid scandal that he was playing way too much Call of Duty and that he wasn't logging hours watching film or whatever, and that they added a stipulation in his contract for that he had to spend X amount of time watching film or whatever, and that was insane when you think about it. So that is also something that is a major question. But he now enters, honestly, in my opinion, as the top quarterback in this free agency class. You have Malik Willis, Kyler Murray, and potentially Tua. Like, I'm not blown away by that free agency class. It's not moving mountains for me, but I feel like Kyler is more talented than Malik Willis, even though he is a midget for NFL standards. So it'll be interesting to see where he ends up, and also what the Cardinals decide to do at their quarterback position, if they just ride with Jacoby Brissett or try to do some other random thing. I don't even know who else they could go to at this point. And then we go back to quarterbacks. Daniel Jones has been franchise tagged with the transition tag. Basically, what this tag means, it's different from Breece Hall's tag in that this tag gives Jones the opportunity to sign an offer sheet with another team that Indianapolis would then have the right to match. So the price tag for this is $37.83 million, which is $6 million cheaper than the quarterback franchise tag. So essentially, what this means is that the Colts have the opportunity to match any offer that Daniel Jones is given. So this doesn't mean that he's on the Colts for next season. He's not guaranteed to play on the Colts next season. He could receive an insane deal based off of his play from, I believe, the first 10 weeks of the season before he tore his Achilles, that the Colts wouldn't be willing to match, and then he would go join that team as the free agent signing. So that is something that could impact the team. But honestly, I'm not too moved. Like, we saw Daniel Jones, we saw him play well for those 10 games, but I feel like I'm kind of regurgitating what a lot of people said with Sam Darnold, but I feel like he has to prove it again. He got hurt, so that is also big caveat. Will he be able to repeat what he did last year, considering the Achilles injury? Will he be able to come back healthy and then on top of that play at the same level? If not, I don't believe that giving him this massive deal that some team may offer. I don't know if they give him that massive deal. I don't know if that would be worth it. I feel like giving him the tag is a lot smarter for the Colts. I feel like placing him on the regular tag would have been smarter, something that the Giants didn't do when they had the chance to give him that gigantic deal, which kind of screwed them over. I feel like the Colts could have just put the regular tag on him, but they are saving $6 million. So this is a good move for them, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with Daniel Jones if he gets an offer, and also what type of offer that is. Because I don't know if he'll accept the deal that makes him less than $37 million per year, because that's what he would be getting with the Colts this season. So. And then the rest of the players that have not been franchise tagged. Talk about Kenneth Walker, Colts wide receiver Alex Pierce. A lot of people consider him one of the top free agent prospects, top wide receiver prospect right now. And then Chargers DN Adafe Owe. I've seen some rumors that he might go back to the Ravens, which is interesting considering they dealt him mid-season to the Chargers. That would be kind of awkward. You walk into the office and you see your general manager that sent you away mid-season. You're like, hey, how's it going? And they're like, hey, welcome back. So great to see you. We totally didn't ship you off halfway through the season. So that, I don't know where it'll end up. And then Jaguars running back Travis Etienne. He's had an up and down tenure with the Jaguars, so it's with Breece Hall being franchise tagged, he now jumps up to RB2 in the free agency pool behind Kenneth Walker for me. So there will be teams that give him offers and are competing for his services. And then Tyler Linderbaum for the Ravens. Why they have not secured this man's future is beyond me. You need a center. He's been a good center too. Why they're letting him go is I don't understand it. Well, they're not necessarily letting him go. He still has the opportunity to come back to the team during the offseason or during free agency, but I have a feeling he'll move on or go to a different team that gives him a much larger deal. And then we all know this was going to happen. Trey Hendrickson is now an unrestricted free agent. He's going to turn into a mercenary. I have a feeling he's going to go to a contending team, try and win something. So that was well known that he was going to be a free agent. There was no way the Bengals were going to tag him again. So that's something that had to be obvious. But those are the major players that have become free agents now that didn't get tagged. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out in the coming weeks, and I will be tuned in and I will be keeping everyone updated on that. And then we're going to end off the news with some comedy here. Terrion Arnold is tied to an alleged armed robbery and kidnapping that took place shortly after midnight in February in Tampa, according to a Florida court order. So From what I've understood, from what I've seen, this is in retaliation to when his Airbnb was robbed. There were luxury bags, watches, jewelry, things like that. And Tyrion Arnold took things into his own hand. He supposedly, from what I heard on the court document, it says he partook in vigilante justice. So Tyrion Arnold is Batman. Basically, he called up the homies and were like, "Yeah, we finna jump this dude." So they got busy. They apparently like set a trap for this guy, and then like jumped him and kidnapped him to figure out like what was up, what's the deal. This is wild. O Block is in Detroit for a reason. This is just insane. Honestly, 100%. Honestly, I love this. This is great. He's a menace to society. I know this isn't recent, but I saw this. This just came across my timeline. I love this, man. This is a dog. But that's all the news for this week on this news episode. Now it is time to check in on some of the scores that I previewed in the Friday episode of the show. And I will say, these games were amazing. Absolutely amazing. We're going to start off with Arsenal and Chelsea. Arsenal won 2-1 against 10-man Chelsea. It was dominance from Arsenal. They scored early in the 21st minute. And however, Arsenal were able to draw even on an own goal, and then Arsenal was able to go back up, secure the win with a Timber goal at the 66th minute. And when you look at the stats, Chelsea won the possession, but Arsenal had more shots on goal. And for them, I talked about this in the last episode with the Champions League ranking. They're gunning for that Premier League title right now as it stands. So, interesting result. It was not that bad of a game. But this is where the real fireworks happened. Roma and Juventus. To say this was entertaining is an understatement. They went back and forth and back and forth. They started with Roma opened up the scoring in the 39th minute with Wesley Franca. And then Conceição evened it up at 1 apiece in the 47th. And then Roma took a 3-1 lead with goals from Indica and Malen at the 54th and 65th minute. And then Juventus scored the 78th and were able to equalize in the 93rd minute. This helps them avoid their third straight loss and keeps them relatively close to the top five. They have been falling as of late. However, the real story isn't that they've been falling. The real story is this masterpiece from Conceição to level it at 1. Just another view of this is absolute madness. The volley just drives. That is beautiful. That is pure art. Even though Conceição hasn't exactly been playing a lot of minutes, he is still a very, very good player, very dangerous, and I enjoy watching him when he is on the field. And then the final pro game that I previewed was the Knicks and the Spurs. The Knicks came away with a dominant 114-89 victory, snapped the Spurs' 11-game win streak. Even though Jalen Brunson didn't have an amazing scoring night, he had 24 points and 7 assists, so that wasn't bad. And then it was more Wemby. He had 25 points, 13 rebounds, 4 blocks, but he did have 7 turnovers as well. But he also had this
with the
nasty
start of the playoffs. First return timeline. Here's Wembanyama. Look out! My goodness! Go to the line.
Shot fake, drive, get out the way.
He put OG Anunoby into a body bag, but body bags don't win you games. So the Knicks were able to come away with the victory there, and a much needed victory at that, because the Celtics have overlapped them in the recent weeks to take the 2 seed away from the Knicks, which is, I think, is important for them. They need that because you don't want to be going to the Garden in the second round and allowing the Celtics to have home court advantage, which would be a major, major issue. And then for the college hoops games, we had Duke against Virginia. Duke came away with a 77-51 victory. They were able to clinch the ACC tournament's top seed, take away ACC title. Even though Cam Boozer did not lead the team in scoring, he had 9 boards. They were led by Isaiah Evans with 19. Cam Boozer had 18. So came away with a very good 26-point victory over Virginia. And then Iowa State was upset by Texas Tech. 9-point victory for Texas Tech, 82-73, which had ended Iowa State's home winning streak, giving them their first home loss of the season. Texas Tech was led by Donovan Atwell with 18 points. And then they also had 4 other players in double digits, with Luke Damboye with 13, Jalen Petty with 12, Christian Anderson with 14, and then Josiah Mosley with 10 off the bench. And then when you look at Iowa State, they had good production from Joshua Jefferson and Milan Momcilovic with 22 and 20 respectively, but outside of that, you had 8 points from Blake Buchanan, you had 0 points from Kylian Toure, you only went 3 deep off your bench too. Like, hello? And your 3 players scored 3 points, 3 points, and 4 points off the bench. That's not good. You can't be doing that in college hoops. So that's ultimately what led to Iowa State's downfall in this game. And then Arizona took care of Kansas with a dominant 23-point victory. And this just proves why Arizona is one of the top teams in the country. They had Braden Berries with 20 points, and then they had all 5 of their starters were in double digits. So when you have that right there, that's instantly a boost. Compared to Kansas, you had 2 starters with scoring 2 points. You have Darren Peterson, who he's amazing by himself, but when you have him with 24 points and then your next highest score has 13, and you have 5 goose eggs off the bench, and then the other two players that came off the bench had 3 points and 4 points. That's not how you're going to win against the number 2 ranked team in the country. And then finally, Arizona went at it again against Iowa State. They came away with a 73-57 victory as they clinch the Big 12 title outright. This was another dominant game for Arizona, like their last game against Kansas that I went over. And even though Braden Burries only had 11 points, Jalen Bradley stepped up this game with 17 points, filling out the stat sheet: 17 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 steals. Very, very good performance from him, and a very good performance overall by this Arizona team. They held Iowa State to 29% shooting from the field and 23% from 3. So when you can put on a defensive performance like that and then on top of that put up 73 points, that is a dangerous, dangerous team to look out for in college hoops. But that is all of the major news that has happened in the world as of now. So, we are going to look at the standings before we wrap everything up. As it stands right now, week 18, Duke is again the 1 seed. Top 3 remain consistent with Duke, Arizona, and Michigan. That is unchanged. UConn jumps up 2 spots to number 4, as well as Florida. They go to number 5. That is because of the fall of Iowa State. They have dropped down to 6, along with Houston dropping down to 7. Biggest leap in terms of the AP poll is Texas Tech, coming off of, again, like I said, that win over Iowa State. They jumped from 16 to 10. They are now 22-7. And then the lone undefeated team in the top 25, Miami, Ohio, still undefeated, claiming that MAC championship with ease, heading into the MAC tourney, number 1 overall seed. At this point, they're pretty much guaranteed a March Madness spot. So there is that. And then your biggest faller is the Boilermakers, Purdue. They dropped from top 10 to 15. They went from 8 to 15, dropping 7 spots. So that is a major issue. But again, all of these teams are going to make the tourney in all likelihood. So that is it for college hoops. Now we'll go to the next level. We'll go to pro hoops. We got the Detroit Pistons sitting atop the East. Still, they're 45-15. They have smashed the legend of winning 40 games before you lose 20. They are 8-2 in the last 10, so not bad at all. And they're followed up, as per usual, by the Celtics and the Knicks. The Celtics are opening up a bit of a gap over the Knicks. Now a game and a half above the Knicks. But both teams are relatively hot. In their last 10, the Celtics are 8-2. The Knicks are 7-3. They're both on 3-game win streaks. So anything could happen there. And then the Pacers remain in the depths of despair in terms of the season, but the highest of hopes when it comes to the draft. They are 15-46 right now, the bottom of the East, tied with the Nets. So both of those teams are abysmal. And then we go over to the West. Thunder are still on top, 47 and 15. So right now, the Pistons are hot on their tail for the number one overall seed in the NBA. The Spurs are still right behind them, only 3 games behind. They lost their last game, but they're 9-1 in their last 10, which is impressive to say the least. Followed by now the Rockets. The Nuggets have lost a couple games. They're now a game behind the Rockets at the 5 seed. 4 seed is the Timberwolves. And then in the depths of despair, as per usual, you have the Kings, who are the worst team in the NBA with a 14-48 record, which is yikes. That's bad. That's really bad. Like really bad. But yeah, that's I'm not gonna continue talking about the Kings here. I've given them enough hate. Yeah, you can't call it flowers. I've given them enough hate. I don't care enough about them. They're the cousin of every California team. No one likes them. So we're gonna go over to soccer now. We're gonna look at the Italian Serie A for now. I mentioned Juventus. That draw against Roma was crucial to stay next to the top 5. They remain only a point behind Como. So as it stands right now, Inter pulling away 10 points ahead of Milan with 67, Milan at 57, followed by Napoli with 53, Roma with 51, Como at 48, and Juventus at 47. So the fact that Juve, Como, and Roma are all within 4 points of each other is very interesting. A lot of stuff could change there between those teams. But as this is an adage that I have been told and I have said, and is a prime example with the Juventus and Roma game, the league isn't won against the top teams. It's cool if you get points against them. Like Juventus getting points against Roma, nice, that's great. But you need to come away with points against the lesser teams. You need to get points against teams like Pisa, Lecce, Cremonese, Fiorentina, Verona, Genoa, Torino. You need to get points from those teams. So, with 11 games to play, that's 33 points. A lot of stuff can change, but you need to get those points from the lesser teams. And now, a lot of stuff still to be played. There's a lot of games in play. Arsenal has 64 points, but they have an extra game when you look at pretty much everyone else in the top 6. Arsenal has 29 games. City, United, Villa, and Chelsea all have 28. And when you look at points, if City wins, they will get up to 62 points and only 2 points behind Arsenal. This is why I talked so much about the Premier League race when I was talking in the last episode when I was going over Champions League, and why I couldn't rank these teams higher, just because I think that they'll be battling it out for the Premier League title. And then you have United and Villa tied at 51 each, followed by Liverpool at 48 and Chelsea at 45. So the top 5 is really what it's going to come down to make the Champions League. But a lot of stuff could change there. Again, like I said, with Serie A, you got to come away with points against the bottom teams here: Wolverhampton, Burnley, West Ham, Nottingham Forest, and I hate to say it's Tottenham, even though they have made it to the round of 16 in the Champions League. So yeah. And then finally, we'll go over to La Liga. We have Barcelona opening up somewhat of a gap now over Atletico Madrid. 4 point gap over Atletico Madrid. Barcelona at 64 points. Real with 60. And then Atletico and Villarreal are both tied at 51. So that top four, it's not going to really change the rest of the season. But it's really that race between Barcelona and Real Madrid. A lot of you guys said I was a lot of Spanish league bias in that Champions League thing. But when you look at Barcelona and what they were able to do, Lamine Yamal scored a hat-trick over the weekend. He looked great. They looked great as a team. And if they're able to continue playing well, I believe my prediction is going to hold up and they're going to win the Champions League there. So that is all the major news that has happened since the last show. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll keep you guys updated on all sports. We got an interesting show coming up on Friday, so we'll see how that goes. And I will see you then. Peace.